Today, I want to spend some time talking about three different types of figurative language. Now, I know you've already learned these this year, but we're going to review them just to make sure we're all on the same page. So let's get started. Remember, figurative language is anytime the author says something that it doesn't really mean what it sounds like. So let's take a look. The first one is similes. Now, similes are used to compare two things using the words like or as. I've got some example similes up here. She is as graceful as a swan. So in this one, you're comparing the girl to a swan using the word as. Below that, it says he swims like a fish. You're comparing him to a fish using like. You'll notice that all of these things are comparing two different things. That's really important when you're thinking about similes and metaphors. There has to be a comparison there. With similes, you just use like or as. The next one is metaphors. So metaphors are when you compare two things, but you don't use like or as. So instead of saying she is as graceful as a swan, you just say she is a swan, he is a fish. These take a little bit more thinking to try to figure out because it's not telling you how she's like a swan. She just is. Take, for example, he is a computer. You might assume that he thinks really quickly because he is a computer. These take a little bit more inferencing and thinking about. Finally, we have idioms. Now, idioms are common sayings that cannot be understood by what the separate words mean. The words all together have a very specific meaning. So, for example, cross your fingers. It doesn't really mean to cross your fingers. We all know that when someone says cross your fingers, they're asking you to keep a promise and prove that you're not going to break it. But that doesn't really make sense with just the words cross your fingers. Same with cat got your tongue. Have you ever heard that? It means that you're being quiet and they want to know why you're not talking. It doesn't literally mean that a cat got your tongue. That's why I really like idioms. They kind of force you to think a little bit more outside the box. These can be really hard for people that don't speak English as their first language because in other cultures and other countries, they don't say these things. Like stabbed in the back. We know that it means someone lied to you or didn't keep a secret they were supposed to. But think about if you didn't know that, you'd be like, what do you mean he stabbed her in the back? That doesn't make sense. Is she okay? So idioms can be confusing. Sometimes you really need to stop and think about the context in which they are said. So these don't have any context. For example, if it says hit the hay, you might not know what it means. But it would probably be in a story where the author is like, she was really tired, so she hit the hay. That context is what really helps you to understand what these idioms mean. So further on, when we start writing about idioms, similes, and metaphors, the context that they're stated in is going to be really important in deciding what they mean and how you begin to understand them.